Hello, everybody, and good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning to you. Oh, hey. It is your girl, Ruthie the Truth, your financial wellness coach and your number one strategist for goal driven planning. And today, you guys, I have a very special guest on. Her name is Jessica Baier, and she is going to fill us in on this wonderful new app that she has developed. And as a woman owned business, I'm so excited to hear more about her business venture and also about this app because I look forward to collaborating with her to actually use this to help you guys with your financial wellness journey. So I won't take up too much time, but I will let Jessica introduce herself and let you guys know who she is, what she does, and how her app and what she does can help you in your journey. Hey,
That's
Jess.
awesome. Hi, Ruthie. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so
Yeah.
excited to be here. And I just love your morning energy. I like got excited and I knew I was here, but I just got excited by your intro. So thank you. Thank you for that. I can tell why people love working with you. So
Oh.
like you said, I'm Jess. I'm the founder of Habit Money. And before I tell you about the product, I'm going to tell you why I started building it. So
Mhm.
I'm going to rewind to my early 20s. I had no idea what I was doing with money. I grew up in a family of like really humble means. And so when I graduated from college, I was making three times what my parents made. And so I had no
Mm.
idea what I was doing. And so, like a lot of people, I kind of just buried my head in the sand and just hoped because I felt intimidated. I felt stupid. I was working in a job where everyone around me seemed to know what they were doing. And so I was just like, I'll
Mm.
let it go. And I
Right.
didn't start dealing with my money until I got into my 30s. And my partner and I were finally having the money talk and kind of putting our money together. And it was probably one of the hardest conversations we've ever had. And afterwards, we kind of looked at each other and we said, okay, we like to think we're fairly well educated. We know what we're supposed to be doing. Why is it so hard for us to do it? And I'm sure, as a financial coach, you're like, of course, this is a conversation that comes up all the time. And
Right.
so I started talking to a lot of people and just said, what do you guys do? How do you manage your money? Like, what do you need? And what I
Mhm.
saw was a few different groups of people. One was the group of people who are like, I love dealing with money. I use all of these different apps. It's amazing. Like, let me show you all of my different graphs and charts, right? Like you can think
Okay.
of all of those apps that exist. But then
Mhm.
there's the group of people that like I fell into, and probably a lot of the people on this channel fall into, of like, I know what I need to do. I don't need financial literacy. I'm not illiterate. I just need some help kind of overcoming that action intention gap where I know what I need to do, but I'm not doing it. I set a budget, but then I
Right.
never pay attention to it. Or I have these emotional blockers and I can't get there. And that was the click for me. As I was like, there's got to be something that I can build that can help people bridge that gap. And so then I started talking to financial coaches like you. And
Uh-huh.
I heard over and over a lot of that behavioral change was the hardest part. Things like tracking your spending, the mindfulness, the reflection. And so
Yes.
through that, that's what Habit was born. So I like to think of Habit as like a digital personal trainer for personal finance. And what it does is it automates a lot of what the hard stuff when it comes to dealing with your money. So daily mindfulness, tracking your spending, reflecting on how it makes you feel. And it's
Mhm.
something that can make money really accessible and also paired with a coach like you can accelerate some of the progress you want to make in your personal finance journey.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh. Your story is so inspiring, right? Especially for those that are watching the dads and grads, because that's what I primarily focus on. Because we are expected to have everything together, and like kind of to your point, it's like that when we have the drive, we have the ambition, we accomplish so much more than what where we came from in our childhood. And but yet a lot of that childhood, those values and like they translate into our adulthood and how we make those decisions. So it's like some people may genuinely be financially literate, right? And so that's why never necessarily put it as anything other than financial wellness. Like the wellness part is just that. It's not necessarily that you're illiterate. It's just that the application and the ability to take action based on whatever's going on in your mindset is very important to keep that in check, because once you're able to really narrow down and nail what's going on inside, then it's going to reflect on the outside. Like that's just automatically is, I don't know, I guess like the balance of life or something. I don't know.
I know. I love that. I love that you said it, and I love that you called it financial wellness. I think that term like really, really matters because I don't know if you hear this a lot, but I hear the phrase, I'm just bad with money. Like it's somehow some sort of personal failing. And
Right.
the reality of this, and I hope everyone listening can take this home too, is that as humans, we're all wired to be bad with money. Like it's not a personal failing, it's actually like how your brain works. Like I always like to tell people, if you take it back to the caveman, cavewoman days, if you were wandering around and you found a fig tree, you weren't going to be, if you were the person who said, I'm just going to have a couple figs and then save that for later, the person who could save, who could abstain from instant gratification, that person would have died because someone else was going to come along and eat all
And
your food.
right, right.
We were not in a place as humans where we could think about planning for the future because we were just in survival. And so if you think about the evolution of our
Yes.
brains, this is getting super scientific, but the evolution of our brains means that's part of our brain is much more mature than that rational part of our brain. And so anytime you're experiencing a stressor, like stress, I'm hungry, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm frustrated, like you name the feeling, like your emotional brain is probably going to beat your rational brain to the punch. And that's where a lot of those kind of scripts or lessons from our childhood start to pop up. And because you just kind of go with what you know. And sometimes those things are really good, sometimes they're not very good. Either way, they're automatic and they're not choiceful. And so I think just understanding this about yourself can help people sort of, you know, disintermediate the idea that like there's something wrong with me. And it's more like, no, this is just psychology. But if I know this about myself, I can use some tools to manage that so that I can actually let my rational brain catch up and make sure all the choices I'm making are what I want. They're not just reactive, you know?
Absolutely. Yes, I could not agree more. Like it's so, I'm so glad that you're raising the awareness on that level, because so many people really just don't get the psychology of life. So like when life, they have the terminology like, life is lifing. We have, and even growing up, we hear a lot of these different phrases, but we don't necessarily know for ourselves what they mean. So like the scripts that you're referring to is like, okay, we just have these defaults that we just go to. And um one thing that I could say I've learned in my personal finance journey is that a lot of those scripts, like I've always been a curious child. So like even on the dating, when I was on the dating apps, I kind of veered away from that because I was like, all right, you know what? It's just getting too crazy.
Story for another time.
Right. We get personal, a little personal to finance, right? So once upon a time, I was on the dating apps, and on the dating apps, they like people like everything is so scripted, right? So, but one of the I guess thing actions that it really was the woman supposed to make the first move. So it was Bumble.
Oh,
And
yeah. Okay.
so right, so I had to like ask or choose a question for the guy to ask. So one of the questions were like, how what did you get in trouble for growing up when you were a child?
Mm.
And so I was like, asking questions, because that was the easiest one I could give, because I was just always a curious mind. So my mind just naturally was always is like always wanted. I don't know. I guess I was born to be a psychologist to some degree, and a lot of those scripts I always challenged them from young, and I always got in trouble for challenging the for asking those questions and also for challenging
Mm,
adults. So growing up, now being in business, it becomes that much more harder for me to
mm,
manage, like, say the business finances, because there are in business you have to ask questions, like, and you're not going to get reprimanded for asking the questions, but because I went majority of my life getting reprimanded for asking questions, I it kept me stuck in this frame of mind of like, this is negative. Like there's no positive reinforcement for any of the questions that I was asking. So fast
oh,
forward, me becoming a mom, my son and daughter are 16 and she's 16 and he's 14. Now my kids make spreadsheets because I'm like, okay, I'm going to beat this whole mindset shift of like, I want to show them better than I can tell them of what needs to be done. And if there are any questions, if I don't have the answer, because I felt like those adults just probably never had the answers because they're just following scripts from whatever they were taught. And
100%.
right. And so whatever they learn in their childhood is just like a domino effect that just takes place. But going to conferences and just being on like LinkedIn and being on like all different social media kind of change that, um I guess that tradition of, the question, and like it makes you want to answer questions because there's always something trivial going on social media. So um
Yeah.
to be honest with you, social media impacted me in a positive way to ask more questions because they have the poll option and a question thing on like Instagram or whatever and TikTok. And yeah, so that helped my personal finance journey. Weirdly enough, I say all of that to say, these things, the questions actually help in the journey. And so um, hence why we're here on the podcast and I'm interviewing you because
Yeah.
I realize how important it is to ask questions. And not only that, but people, like you said, when you went around to ask people like how to get things in order, it's very important to, let people know like, hey, I'm I need help, like for whatever it is, like something is going wrong in my life and or things are just not right. And I don't know what's wrong in what I'm doing that I need in order to make it right. What tools do I need to kind of like correct whatever's happening? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I mean, that's why I'm so happy you created this space just to kind of pick up on that, because something that you shared that I think is so important to highlight here is that recognition. And one, what you did was you kind of recognized like this was a script and you wanted to change something. And like the building awareness around anything in your life. I mean, money is a huge piece of it. Like, I think money is a reflection of our values, which we can talk about
Oh,
in a second.
yes.
But like, you had the awareness to say, hey, this is happening to me, but then you also built the confidence to be able to ask. And I think something that is really hard about money is there's a lot of built in stigma and shame and guilt because in our society, and I don't know what it is, but you don't say to people you're struggling. Like, here's an example. When I first started Habit, I texted 50 people and said, hey, do you know anyone who's struggling with credit card debt? Every single person responded, and every single person said, I don't think so. And that's just statistically inaccurate. At least one of those people probably has credit card debt themselves, and they definitely know someone who does. But it just shows that, like, we don't talk about you were talking about like asking people, talking about your struggles. We don't talk about it with money. And that's really a problem because the people we're trying to help are the people who need it. But again, there's that guilt, there's that shame, there's like, I'm just bad with money, there's something wrong with me. And so part of, one of my big missions with Habit, and I'm so happy you're doing this too, is kind of
Mhm.
destigmatizing this and the vulnerability of just sharing, like, I've struggled too. It's really, really hard to ask for help. And I think about like your dads and grads, like especially grads. That's where my money journey started. You know, you're graduating, you're getting your first job. It is overwhelming. You've got student loans. You have to figure out what a 401k is. You have to build a budget for the first time. You have to figure out like how much rent you can afford, health insurance contributions. It's a lot. It's a lot of jargon. It's very overwhelming. And it's
Yes.
really hard to look around and ask for help. I didn't do that. And so it's really powerful, I think, for you to be modeling and for other people to be modeling what it looks like to ask for help. And that's really the hardest part.
Yes, yes. It really, I hope that with, if I can reach these 800, if we can reach these 800 dads and grads, because I know that with the workbook, between the workbook and the app, because you know, different generations have different preferences. So between these both, if we can collectively reach 800 dads and grads, that will literally have such an impact on not just them, but like their families, like you know, their children are going to be watching that process of them either using the app, like they can kind of like do it together with their children before they even graduate, and we can kind of hopefully
Change the script.
be, yes, for once in life. And that's what excited me the most, like when we first connected. And by the way, guys, Jessica, where are you from, right? Because a lot of times people, they're like, wait, how did that happen?
Oh yeah. I'm from the middle of nowhere, Montana. So I live in San Francisco right now, but I am
Okay.
from a really, really small town. It was like a logging town. We're talking like
Mm.
2,000 people. My graduating class had 42 people in it.
Oh.
Went to K through 12 with the same number of people. And my dad ran a gas station. So
Oh.
I've gone a completely different direction. But that's why I say like it's very, when I say humble means, I just mean like we didn't talk about money because we didn't have any. Like my parents were incredibly engaged, and they were, you know, this wasn't like a they never talked to us about stuff, but they had nothing to talk about. My parents were divorcing. They were definitely not arguing about money because we didn't have any. But we didn't
Mm.
talk about retirement. We didn't talk about savings. We didn't talk about building credit because that wasn't that wasn't an issue, I guess. We were just
Right.
living paycheck to paycheck, and that's just what you do.
Right, right, right. Exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing. So that is what I find to be the beauty of connecting with different dads and grads from all over, is just the fact that like no matter where you're from, you're always going to have at some point in your life, even if it's not necessarily in the beginning point, it could be the middle or end, somewhere in your lifetime, you're going to experience these financial either hardships or just like challenges. There's going to be some level of humbling. So, like I was telling you earlier, my car just broke down yesterday, and I was like, crap, what am I going to do? Right now, this is going to potentially put me in a financial hardship. Right now, we're talking, I didn't come from anywhere rich, but I have purchased a home, sold a home. That car is 2018 Jeep Grand Cherokee, paid in full, um, using life insurance. And I have life insurance for myself, for my children. Like, I have things set. You know what I'm saying? So and not only that, but I realized by going to college, that in itself was a hardship because my parents, like you said, they didn't save anything up. They, if they knew, I don't think they knew enough, or maybe sometimes maybe they weren't even ambitious enough to continue going because it's hard. Like life is life, and you know people try to glamorize life and like the graduations, it's so glamorous on commencement day and graduation day, right? But all of those days from the beginning of registration for your very first
Mm-hmm.
class to the final exam of your very last class, like there's a whole bunch of life transitioning happening, and there's a whole lot of like non-glamorous experiences that we're going through. And even that in itself is like, okay, you could have came from Beverly Hills, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to go through some kind of hardship at some point in your life, to the point, like you said, where you will meet some level of struggle, even if whether it's financial, whether it's emotional, and the emotions affect the finances. It
Hmm.
happens to everybody. It happens to celebrities, like, you name it, you cannot avoid it. If you are a human being, it's bound to happen. And
Yeah.
yeah,
I
you
mean,
need
it's,
a support system.
tell me if I'm repeating anything, but have you ever talked about the concept of a financial neighborhood?
No, 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 tell me more.
Okay.
Okay.
So there's this concept in financial psychology of a financial neighborhood. And I love that you highlighted this because
Hmm.
your point around it doesn't matter your background, you're going to have what you kind of call a money moment at some point. And for the
uh,
grads, it happens a lot during college. And so it doesn't matter if you came from a background of less means, if you came from a background that's really wealthy. The idea of a financial neighborhood is like you kind of grow up in a space where you understand the rules. And then the second you move to another space, you don't know the rules. And so your default is to go back to the old way. And so
mm,
you made the comment around at like celebrities, professional athletes. Like on average, 3 years out of the league, most professional athletes are broke. And that is not because they're stupid. That is not because they don't have financial literacy, even though I think a lot of the times that's always like kind of the narrative. But a lot of
right.
professional athletes did not grow up in a home where they had bajillions of dollars. And so all of a sudden, they very quickly move to a new financial neighborhood and they don't know how. They are not well equipped to manage their money. And so, unless they ask for help and they look for someone to help them learn how to play the game in this new financial neighborhood, they default to their old rules. And that happens whatever background. Maybe you grew up really wealthy in Beverly Hills and then all of a sudden you are working in a nonprofit and trying to make ends meet. Maybe you're someone who grew up in a family where like you spent a lot and you actually had no idea that your family was going into credit card debt, and all of a sudden you graduate college and you're like, wait, people budget, you have to be like, you don't just buy things whenever you want. It's just that this happens in college and there's already a lot of learning. You're identifying your values, you're comparing yourself to your friends, and we all
Oh
know
yes,
comparison is the thief of joy. And so
absolutely.
all of this is happening in this moment. But I highlight the financial neighborhood thing because I think it's such a powerful concept,
Mm.
especially when you're in these transition states. When you're if you can recognize if you're feeling a little uncomfortable or you're feeling, like
Mm.
that the fear of asking questions, like we said earlier, because you don't feel confident. It's like it's probably because you're moving into a new financial neighborhood and you don't have all the answers. You don't know all the rules. You're in a completely new
Right.
place.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That is such a gem. Oh my God. And this is something that people just don't, I don't know. I don't know why it doesn't end up becoming a conversation. Like, this is what kind of makes me curious again, because it's like, at some point, like, how do we get to the point of having these conversations? Like, what sets us apart, you and I, from our anyone else, our peers or our parents, or because it seems like life in itself and history in itself, there's a cycle. Like they had in science, I don't know, fifth grade, whatever, we learn about life cycles, right? So
Yeah.
a lot of what we learn in school, it's very relative to the day-to-day living. So at what point do we have this like miscommunication of what we're learning in school and what, we're this is what we're pushed to do. We go to school, you graduate high school, you go into college, you learn all like you're going to learn, but at what point does it actually spark the conversations? And I feel like you got a point here when you're talking about the money neighborhoods, because it seems like that's what it is. Like when you're in the neighborhood, and I guess they kind of, I'm thinking about when I first bought my house, right? And I was a new neighbor. I bought the house during the pandemic, so they couldn't really come over with stuff because we were all just kind of like, we don't want to die, and you stay in your place and I'll stay in mine. But um, my neighbors were so awesome because I can tell that they knew that I was a first time home buyer because I was young. So,
Yeah.
and it was my first property, and they like brought my trash can in for me, and I was like, oh, like my old neighborhood didn't do that. Like, you know, or they'll tell me like, hey, there was a package that was outside. So we brought it in, or like they exchanged phone numbers because they kind of already knew that you're new in the neighborhood. So let's
Mm-hmm.
take you under our wing because we want the best quality in our neighborhood. And so they kind of like, even through the pandemic, like the heart of the pandemic in New York, they literally still stayed connected and they still wanted to make sure that I was good. And I didn't even ask. So I was like, it was weird to me because I'm like, they did it a few times. And then even when it snowed, they would shovel. So I was like, okay, well, if they shovel, I have salt. So let me just be the salt supply. And then I used to salt, both sides. And it was amazing to be in a neighborhood that just kind of like where you feel like you belong, because even though you're new, they still
You're
your
accepted.
neighborhood, right? They know that you're at a certain level of life, or at least you're trying to reach for the stars. So they want to help
Yeah.
you land on the moon and kind of go through that process. And it was such an amazing experience because it helped me to be more financially focused, because now it sparked joy. Like it sparked joy for me to not have to bring my garbage. And you think
Yeah.
it's like the simple things in life.
Well, and what
Uh,
I think you just shared, because you asked the question, and I actually think you answered it maybe without realizing it, or maybe you were like, "Yes, I'm totally incepting Jess with an answer," so I'll give you credit for that. But like, you asked like, "Why don't we talk about this?" And I
mhm.
think or how do, maybe the better way to ask it is like, how do we talk about this? And
Ah,
I kind of think about like financial wellness is like it's behind where mental health was, 10 years ago. Think about where we are
mm,
now. We start sentences with my therapist says. I have therapy on my work calendar.
yeah.
I'm very open about talking about like my mental health, and a lot of us are. And I do think the pandemic really accelerated us
Oh
talking
yes,
about that. But 10
yes.
years ago, we didn't talk about mental health this way. This was very much a personal problem that you dealt with yourself, and you kind of didn't admit to people, except those closest to you, that you were going to therapy, because it was almost like there was an admission there was something wrong
Something
with
wrong with it.
you. And
Yes.
I think it's the same thing with money, and financial wellness and mental health are very closely linked. But
Oh
I
yes.
think, to what happened to you in that financial neighborhood is two things. One is people were paying it forward. They did that for you, probably because someone did that for them. And so that paying forward
Ah.
cycle happened for you. And this is why I think these conversations are so important, and why I've actually been very energized by my habit users, because I actually watch them go on a journey like this, where they first start out and they feel such deep shame and guilt. And they are like, I don't know what I'm doing and I feel stupid, just like a lot of really negative self talk. And then they
Mhm.
start winning. And then they
Mm.
tell everyone about it's great for me, like I love referrals into habit, but what I'm more excited about is that they're talking about their journeys. And this is the thing, is like the people, they don't, what I say to people is, you don't know if the people closest to you are struggling. And so the best thing you can do is talk about it and destigmatize talking about it. And that's what they
Right.
do. They tell people like, I was here and now I'm here. And so I just think that your neighborhood analogy was like, that's the answer, is you have to pay it forward. You have to, when you
Mm.
go through this journey, you have to talk about it. And you don't just talk about the wins. You talk about where you started, because then you can give people hope that they can get from here to there. And you can also make them
Ooh.
feel like they're not alone.
Right. Wow. I didn't even realize I answered my own question, but
You
that
did.
was
That was genius.
amazing. I love it. See, I love this connection, and it's like you're in Montana, I'm in New York, and it's so great because it's like the alignment. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. Like when your mindset is aligned with the with the people in your neighborhood, you're just automatically going to things flow better, joy sparks way more often. Like, and even if you go through a stressful situation in life, like it just almost like disappears for all of those moments that you kind of had those sparks of joy. So this is
Totally.
amazing.
Have I taken us off a
So
complete tangent? You told me not to do that, and we're in the middle of a complete tangent.
listen, you know what I realized just now in you sharing that is like everything happens for a reason, right? And I say this all the time to myself, like that's my mental script when life is falling apart for me personally, like okay, everything happens for a reason, everything happens. But literally it does happen for a reason. So yes, you kind of did go we did go off in a little bit of a tangent, but I feel like it's still relevant to deeper diving into um why this conversation is so valuable and so important for moving forward. So like I'm hoping that the dads and grads that watch this episode will pay it forward and share with all of their dads, grads, comrades. That was one of my next segments that I'm going to go into at another time. Like share with a friend. Sometimes, like you said, friends may be struggling and most people, they're not going to say like, hey, I'm having a difficult time, unless they
Mm-hmm.
just kind of have that understanding of like, okay, the pay it forward mindset. But a lot of people are just in the every man for themselves mindset because it's like nobody cares, so that's why like my hashtag is Ruthie cares, to let people know like, no, there is a community. I am, it's building it up, starting it up from, bootstrapping it pretty much. But I am connecting with so many people who have the mindset of paying it forward. So whatever you have to bring to the table, even if it's not necessarily money initially, it starts with a share. Digital currency is free. It can be free. Just share this episode, share this moment in time, whatever part of this episode may have like sparked joy in your life, or if there was an aha moment, leave a comment, and most importantly, check in with the app, check in with the website. I will definitely have a button where you can access Jessica's app. We're going to definitely go in and talk about that next, because that is a starting point. Even with a financial struggle, even with a financial hardship, when you share these things, you never know what somebody's going through in their life. And they can be so grateful that you just took the time to think about them. Like, because life, we all know our lives are very busy. And even when we have busy lives and then life starts lifing, we have to stop the busy life to attend the lifing, or the money moment. And then, you know, and then out of nowhere, somebody receives a message like, hey, did you check out this episode? And like, just in case, just thinking of you. You didn't even have to say what it is, just thinking of you. And that literally happened with one of my friends yesterday, the day before. And she just gave me a whole testimonial. And I was like, oh, made me feel better. It's like the trash can thing, pull it in the trash can. And you just come home and you don't have to worry about it. And yeah, so
It's
moments like these.
generosity of spirit.
Right. Yeah. It was meant for us to go off into this tangent because
Great.
I know this is gonna help so many dads and grads. I'm hoping this definitely boosts up the number closer to 800. I have to go back and I guess figure out the actual head count, like how to make it look not fancy, but to put it on the website so that way everybody can see like where I'm at on this goal because
Well, yeah,
it
we
is
need like a
so exciting.
thermometer for you or something, or
Right.
like a
Yeah.
dial.
Yes. Yeah, I have to figure out how to, me and technology, I barely got this thing situated. I figured it out. So, that was the most important part. But yeah, maybe hopefully by the end of this month, then maybe I don't know. Or maybe I have to connect with you. I know you have the app, so it sounds like you're pretty tech savvy, or maybe you know somebody who can set that up
Yeah.
or
I'm
whatever?
already thinking through how we could do this in a hacky way. My attitude is someone has built this before. And so never build it yourself. There's got to be a template out there.
Right. That's so true. Yeah, don't reinvent the wheel. Absolutely. So, all right, speaking about inventing wheels. So, you have this app, right? It is amazing. I wanted you to take the time out to present it to the dads and grads because I really believe that this is going to, well, for one, that is very much in alignment with the Wheel of Life workbook and my financial freedom mindset program. So, and also the Dads and Grads Academy. Like, you have so many elements within your app that is completely aligned with the program that I have. And so that's why I'm like so excited. I'm trying my best not to over talk because somebody told me like you just talk too much. Shut up. So but I get excited, you know, whenever I talk about personal finance, whenever I talk about habits and just personal growth. Like I want people to know like this is just gonna grow you. And it's just so happens to be something that's going to affect you in a positive way financially. So like the fact that you're growing personally will affect your finances naturally. Like the positive financial impact is just going to come that way. So so yes, please do share. Let me see if I did I give you okay. I think you
Yeah. If you
should
can,
have.
let me see if I have sharing permissions. Okay, I'm good to go. And before I pull up the app, what I want to do is
Right.
kind of give like there's the day-to-day experience of the app, but I want to pick up where you left off around like how this ties together with your program and your workbook. And this
Mhm.
the app has I very much built this based on the hundreds of conversations I had with financial coaches. And so the idea is this is something if you use the app and that's enough for you and it can be a standalone thing, great. But a lot of people need extra help. And so I think of the app as something that can help you actualize or put into action the things that you're talking to a coach with. And so just to kind of give everyone an overview of how it works, it's a web app where you go to a website, you set up your account, you connect all of your credit information. If you want, you can also track manually. So I'm not going to force you to do that. If you're like absolutely not, Jess can't see my data. I promise it's secure. But so just very very similar to other money apps. But this is where it's different. Is every day we are going to practice money mindfulness, and so I think of this if you compare it to nutrition. When you are trying to lose weight or you get healthy, your nutritionist tells you to do two things. They tell you to track your calories every day, and they tell you to weigh yourself every day. And doing that alone is scientifically proven to help you be healthier. And it doesn't matter what your calorie budget is, because if you bring awareness to your daily choices, you start making more mindful decisions. And so that is kind of the basis of habit. Like, this is something you go through with a coach almost every time you work with money is you talk to someone and you say, I build a budget and I break it every time. That happens with users too. And so what habit encourages you to do from the get-go is you just start tracking. The goal is not the budget, the goal is the habit. And then from there, you'll build on top of that. So with that kind of foundation, I'll kind of show you like what the experience looks like, but I feel that overview could kind of
Mhm.
bring life to what is just actually, quite frankly, a simple interface. And the other thing I
Mhm.
didn't highlight is that it's all text based. And so I didn't build an app that's downloaded on your phone because it's really hard to change your behavior and to get you to use another app. Like I have so many apps on my phone that
Mm.
have been deleted. And so this is
Mhm.
proactive. And so once you go through and set up the system, you can choose when you get a daily text message. So for me, I like to get it in the morning when I'm playing my Wordle, when I'm still in bed before I start my day. And so I've ritualized this. And so I get a text every day that says, Hey, Jess, it's time for your money mindfulness moment. And when I click on the link, it opens up my experience. And so I've made my screen smaller so it looks more like it does on your phone because most people use it on their phone. And it
Okay.
asks you to do a couple of things. One is to review your transactions. And so it's very simple. here's my Walmart transaction. I think I was ordering some sparkly candles as a surprise for my sister's anniversary.
No.
And so there's two things we ask you to do. One is categorize, two is a feelings check. So you can choose whatever categories you want. Again, we pre-populate it. So if you're that person who's like overwhelmed, we have pre-populated categories. Or you can create your own. And so maybe I want to create one that's like anniversary gift. So I add that, it's done. And now all of a sudden I've got that category. Super easy. The next thing, and actually the thing I think is more important, is the reflection. So
Mm.
if you stand outside of a Starbucks or you stand outside of a Target and you ask people walking out the door how much they spent, they don't remember. They swiped their card a minute ago and they do not remember. And that's like the problem with the mindfulness is in a moment, we make all of our financial decisions in a vacuum. But what this is teaching you to do is to pause. And so, we're reviewing this and I'm like, oh, okay, like 940 on candles. Actually, like that's a little more than I would have expected. And so I'm going to say, I don't feel great about spending money on that. And so that is like the process you go through. This was my pharmacy. So this was my pharmacy payment for my mental health medication. And I was like, yeah, I feel great about that. So I'm going to do this. And that's just the kind of process you go through. And so we also kind of like give you rewards as you track. And so as you complete your mindfulness every week, like you get, kind of badges for getting a 3-day streak. And so again, we're not focusing on rewarding you for your budget. We don't even force you to build a budget in the beginning. And then after you do this for a week, we will send you a little feelings report and we'll say, hey, like here, just to let you know, this is kind of how you're feeling about your spending. And, there's no value judgment on it, but it prompts you to say, hey, what do you notice about your spending? And and again, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just like, hey, you're spending a lot on this thing and this thing you feel really good about. How does that teach you about your values? And that is something that you can then take into a conversation with your coach if you're chatting with Ruthie, or you have that conversation with yourself. And that's the whole point, is to spark curiosity, not to assign a value judgment on like whether or not spending is good or bad. The big thing with habit is there's no good or bad spending. There is identifying your values and then ruthlessly prioritizing. And so, what I can see here is, and I'll share an example from when I first started this. When I first started, takeout was all over in both of my happy and sad categories. And what I realized was the takeout and like meals out I felt really good about were meals out with my partner because he travels for work. And so on the weekends, our date nights were what were really meaningful and our time together. The stuff I didn't feel good about was during the week when I was feeling lazy and I had food in the fridge and I was just like, oh gosh, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, the usual flywheel. I'm going to go order out and like I'm going to go and get coffee just because I haven't left the house today. And that made me realize, oh, okay, there's a value difference here for me. And so then it starts the conversation of what can I do differently so I can reduce the spending that I don't feel good about so I can put that money towards the things that I value. And obviously sometimes that's saving, that's investing, and so that's the process you go through. And so if you just do this, you will naturally start changing your behavior. And so you can see how this probably very much aligns with the workbook, and it helps you kind of put those things into action, and it prompts the thought process.
Yes, I absolutely love this. Now, I know for me personally, exactly what you just said, because I'm such an overthinker, I would be putting happy and sad in the same category. So it would be at the top and the bottom. But I love how you pointed out the like how you kind of broke it down, like what about that transaction made you happy versus what about the transaction made you sad. And that this is what I'm talking about, how it perfectly aligns with the workbook, because on a scale of 1 to 10, I asked the dads and grads, how are they feeling about each of these categories, right? And so this will allow, this is almost like the step one of them, just to categorize, pre-categorize what it is that they had. Like, these are just hard facts from what they're actively spending, versus the workbook. It help, they are, this is what is it, objective, but the workbook is
Mm-hmm.
more subjective, right? And so my medical background, they take the SOAP notes, so subjective, subjective, objective, and then you go follow through with the assessment and then the plan. And that's like brilliant. Like, this just
Yes,
perfectly, it goes perfect with the flow of their financial journey and their
I love
wellness
that.
journey, because
I
now
love.
this will help in the long run. And doing this consistently, let's just say for the first 8 weeks of them doing the spending, it's like it kind of gives them the visual to see, like, you're gonna spend money regardless. So,
Mm-hmm.
and we all know that we're going to spend money regardless. So now that we're spending the money, let's see how we can strategically, even the ones that you may not feel so great about, how can we strategize to, like, boost your feeling up from sad to happy? How could that be adjusted? So um
Yeah. And what
I
I like
I
that or sorry, go ahead, go
uh
ahead.
oh no, so I was gonna say, I like to explain to some of my, like, the previous clients that I had, just the use of certain credit cards. So that's how I kind of
Mm,
introduce them to rewards based credit cards, not any credit card, but those specific ones that are specifically aligned with their, either their habits or their values in life. So
yeah.
once it's aligned, again, all about the alignment. Once those values are aligned in place with the credit cards that they're gonna need to use, because even if their credit score may have taken a hit from a financial hardship, they're going to spend money regardless. So if you spend money, and these categories are exactly what the credit cards, it's all broken down. Like, life is just about patterns. So once you learn the patterns and you figure out the pieces to the puzzle, sometimes you just need help putting the puzzle together. And there's nothing wrong with that. So that was another thing I used to do as a child all the time. Like, they used to buy me these, like, 1,000 puzzles, because they're like, stop talking, stop asking questions, just do the puzzle. And I'm like,
But this is a good place where you should ask questions. And what I love about the workbook tied with it, like the reflection
yeah,
piece, is it teaches you to be curious about yourself. And so instead of just being, again, that fixed mindset of
yes.
I'm bad with money, here's that internal script. It's, when I spend money on, things I don't feel great about, like I'll share a kind of a story about one of the members I have right now. She
Okay.
was spending a ton on self care stuff, like, Botox, like Sephora, like all over the place. And so the app prompts her, like, what do you notice? And what her testimonials that she shared, she realized, which was incredibly powerful, was that she just recently had a baby and was just not feeling in control of her body and not feeling beautiful. And so she was really like down on herself
Mm,
and looking for things to make her feel better. Now,
right.
seeking seeking feeling good has nothing to do with money. Like, that's a deep, deep desire. But the fact that she was able to articulate that, she could then ask herself, well, what actually does make me feel better? And it wasn't a lot of those things. And so by having that realization, she was then able to move forward and say, okay, I recognize when I'm feeling like buying these things. It's not that I actually want this thing, it's that I'm not feeling great about myself. So instead, I'm
Yes.
going to spend this money on therapy, on gym, and still some of this stuff did make her feel good, but that was like the reflection she went through. And so that, I think, like, those are the kind of like powerful realizations you can go through. And then I'm sure
Right.
kind of like the next step of your program is like, then once people are aware, they can actually like build a realistic plan for themselves. And so that's
Yes.
the other thing I'll quickly share is like, So then you can build a money plan, and you can see my money plan for June is very much in the negative. And I actually recorded a thing about this yesterday. That's okay.
Okay.
I'm getting married this month. I have a lot more money going out that it's coming in, and
Oh,
that's the plan.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay. I didn't even know
um,
that.
so yeah, I'm getting married in about 3 weeks, so no pressure at all. But so this the what the app does is it prompts you every month to make a plan based on your reality. And we do a very simple money plan where if you want to budget by every single category, you can. Otherwise, our attitude is what's your income? What do you want to save? Here's all those bills you have to pay. And then whatever's left over, AKA discretionary, that's what you have left to play with. And the idea is like if you build this based on your reality, you're much more likely to actually follow your budget. And so I know I have about $5,000 I need to pay towards my wedding vendors. And so that means that I'm going to have to break even this month. I'm going to have to pull about that much out of my savings. And so that was like a planful choice. And so again, building a budget based on reality. So instead, when a lot of people build their budgets and then they have a surprise expense and they just go, oh, I give up. Um,
Right. It's like, oh,
and so,
you only live once. Like, what? No. You live every
and if
day.
you and if you make like one kind of mistake or you break it, there's always that, oh well, I'll just give up for this month, and that's not the point. And
Right.
so the
No.
last thing
Yeah.
I'll share is
Hmm.
what we also do is to bring the mindfulness is once you start tracking and you get in the habit, after a couple of weeks we'll start sending you weekly reports on Monday, and it's again
Hmm.
via text message. So if all you do is read the text, that's great. It'll send you a little summary that says, hey, Ruthie, this is how much you spent last week. This is how much you spent total in June. If you have a budget set, this is how much left you have in that bucket of money to spend. So you can kind of see, like, as you're tracking, am I above plan? Am I below plan? Like, it gives you an opportunity mid month to actually adjust your behavior. So it's not just, oh, I blew my budget, or even worse, I set a budget at the beginning of the month and then at the end, you're like, what the heck happened? It's again
Right.
teaching that mindfulness so that like every single day you can choose. And what I see in the people that go through this program, and probably very similarly with the workbooks, is they go from a place of feeling controlled and constrained by their money to feeling in control. And they start using
Yes.
language from I can't afford to I choose not to afford. And that's very different
Mm.
because that is a values based phrase to say
Right.
that.
Right. Right. Exactly. No, and yes, that's why I'm so excited about this. I cannot wait. Like we have a good 6 month run to like really put this thing into overdrive for meeting the 800 mark. And the fact that this is month by month, like they will see a difference. Like you're guaranteed to see a difference within the first 8 weeks if you implement all of the tools. Like if there is a problem, regardless of if it's the mental health side. I mean, sometimes people don't know. Like you said, you have to begin to get more curious with what's going on. And if the finances, you're gonna always see it. It's always gonna be objective, but your feelings are always subjective. And no
Mm-hmm.
matter what, like I guess I just always have this hospital all the hospital terminology never left my brain. So just like people, we all get physically sick and we have to go into the doctor, or sometimes
Yeah.
people choose not to go. But life is all about choices and decisions, and you always are like, it's always like red pill blue pill type of thing, like like the matrix almost. And so you have to figure out which path you're going to take, every time you get to that fork in the road in life. And I really hope that the dads and grads um, just have enough courage to say, you know what, let me try this. Let me just give it a shot. Like, what's the worst that can happen? And
Yeah.
and kind of like go for it. Especially, I know the summertime, you know, most people probably be like, no, we'll do this after summer. But then it's like, no, we'll do it after the holiday season, because these are the times now where the most money is getting spent, right? So like,
Yeah,
then we
it's
had
a really
prom
good point.
season, right? There was the Mother's Day season. There was prom season. I mean, really, each quarter there's
We've
always
got
something.
Father's Day coming up, you know.
Right. Exactly. That's my point. And so, like, you know, buying a grill, you know, sometimes if that makes you happy, and you know, buying a steak to sit and hang out in the back and some beers or whatever. Like, I mean, I don't drink beer, but you know, whatever it is that makes them happy is something like you want to still live your life fulfilled.
Yeah,
Tomorrow's not promised, yes, but every day that you wake up, you want to make sure that your today doesn't have a negative impact on your tomorrow, if God wills you to wake up and to move forward. So this is so, oh my gosh, I cannot. I'm going to show you guys, I guess, from the business perspective, because everything I do in my day-to-day life is always business related. My mom cannot stand it because she's like, oh, you're asking questions. And I'm like, well, it's for business. So that's like, that was my way of shifting my, well, not my mindset, but, well, I guess in a way, shifting my mindset, but also shifting the way that everyone else who knows me, my family and friends, like as I'm evolving and my personal growth is continuing to like reach new heights and reach new levels, and I guess now enter new neighborhoods, um, you know, they're not familiar with that part of it. So they're only familiar with the personal side of me. So now I make it
hmm,
my decisions every day is to be intentionally just gearing all of the conversations toward business, because at the end of the day, what you do, like, this is my career. So your
yeah.
career choice will have an impact on your finances, on your joy. I love it because it brings me joy and it allows me to connect with people. And then when I connect with someone like you, that like, you get it, like, you know, it's like, it's just, I love it.
Energy
Like, it
begets
makes my day.
energy.
Yes, yes, exactly. Like, nothing can go wrong. Even if a million things continue to go wrong for the rest of this day, like, I could always replay this and then I'm like, okay, I'm good again.
Yeah. I mean, if there's two things I could leave like your watchers, listeners with, and again,
Sure.
I feel like I just keep taking things that you share and repackaging them. So I kind of feel like I'm stealing your points, but you really inspire thought on this side. So again, energy
Aw.
begets energy. Is that
Right, right.
one? Like there's the best time to start was yesterday. The second best time is to start today. Like I think especially with money, we all think I'll start next month. You know, every member who comes through Habit says this month is a really weird month for me. Every month is a weird month. Like unless you live the same day, every week,
Like
every
Groundhog's
month,
Day.
every year, yeah, like you're not going to be on plan. Like I am, this is such
Right,
a throwback to Pirates of the Caribbean, but you know how Jack Sparrow goes, they're
right,
guidelines, like the pirate code is
right.
guidelines. Like that's what a money plan is. It's not a set in stone thing. It is a guideline. And this is me. So that's like kind of one thing is that it's a guideline and that
Hmm.
there's no right time to do this. The best time is to just start
Hmm.
and just start from today. And it's okay if every month is different because there's always a surprise. The second thing is putting my spin instructor hat back on from back in the day when I used to teach. And what we would always say is, you know, you turn up the resistance on the bike. And it was like, what's the worst that could happen is it's too heavy and you take it off a little bit, but you don't know until you try. And that's kind of what you were talking about, like the courage of curiosity. Um, and to add on that, it's like everyone's at a different starting point and everybody's journey is different. And what I like to say to people is if the plan isn't working for you, it's not you, it's the plan. So if you try something and you turn up the resistance, or maybe you're a little too aggressive and you fall off the wagon a little bit, that doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It just means that maybe we need to adjust the plan. And
Right.
but the courage comes from continuing to try. And the only failure is doing nothing. If you're making steps of progress, it doesn't matter your speed as long as you're moving in that direction. And so the only failure is inertia. And so if you're doing something, you should feel good about that and we should celebrate that.
Yes. Oh, I am so, oh my gosh. That helped me. Let me just say, let me be fully transparent, right? Because that helped me just now. And I appreciate that, Jessica. Like I appreciate those words of encouragement. It definitely, a lot of the planning process, especially with being a planner. I know we were speaking about this a little earlier. Um, it's so much easier to help others than helping self. And so
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you just need to hear some kind of affirmation from the outside, or the motivation from the outside in order for it to really fall applicable to what it is that, yeah, like that's going on. So like although don't feel like you ever took anything that I did, because at the end of the day, like it was like you literally just coached me with what I was saying, and like you made it real. Like it's just it's so interesting how everything works. Serendipity is just like it's always around me, and I genuinely, like, you allowed me to appreciate even what I said, myself, because I told you earlier, like, life is going to start lifing again. And so now, I really want to show the dads and grads that I'm going to do this as well with you. And I'm excited that you're going through, like, I know how challenging the wedding planning can be, especially when you're trying to get two different families on the same page, and like
It's like doing a group
everybody.
project with your parents for the first time.
I'm telling you, yeah, it's, and I'm sure, like you said, like I don't think it matters what background. I think everybody's background, like there's always that, like everybody has different values, and so it's like, even though it's your day, your husband's day, or fiance's day, like, you know, you still have to some extent kind of like go
Compromise.
according to, yes. And it's like, oh my god, you just reminded me of the transitioning of like learning compromise, like getting married. That the wedding planning in that part, that is the ultimate challenge of compromise. I tell people, if you could get through the compromise, the level of compromising that it takes to have everything under control, which is, it'll never really officially be that way for the wedding. It's going to happen however it's going to happen, but just the whole, get if you can get past that entire planning process of dealing with all of these different personalities from different everybody, because like it just sparks a different feeling for everybody just going
It's
through that
fraught also.
transition.
If you think about it, it's
Yeah.
also one of the first times you might be talking about, again, bringing it back to money. I've been sharing a lot of content recently about like the personal experience of the values alignment of money. It's probably the first time you're having a budgeting conversation with your partner. It's definitely the first time you're having a budgeting conversation with your parents. And so there's it is uncharted territories and it's very fraught because what
Yes.
if you are not prepared to have this conversation, like most of us, there's a lot of unspoken values and unspoken desires, and it is very, if you don't realize that and you don't understand it, it can be very tense, because everyone has a seat at the table, but not everyone is always well equipped to articulate like ultimately their needs.
Right. Yes. So you're so on point with that.
But
I
now I've taken us down my wedding route, which is definitely a tangent.
It's a life transition. It's happening in real time. So, that, I mean, that's what it's all about in the end of, you know, that's the whole purpose of the podcast, is just to kind of like highlight the different life transitions. And yeah, this is just life, you're being transparent about it. And I know you're probably not the only woman fiance that's going through this planning process and this life transition actively. So I'm sure this will even help them to just learn. We should definitely do a podcast session just about the planning, because I feel like that in itself that's a whole nother podcast, like how those conversations are with the parents and
Oh
just.
yeah, going through the whole system. I've been sharing it as I go, but it actually would be a cool topic because you kind of like one of the things my partner and I did from the beginning is we sat down and we both wrote down like what mattered to us in our
Mhm.
wedding. And that has really been like the overarching dictate of when we are making choices, whether it's who we invite, whether it's what budget we prioritize. And so if you ever want to do it, I'd be happy to share kind of like that
Oh
system. It's
yes.
actually something I've talked through some friends who've recently gotten engaged and they're sort of like, how do I do this? And talk about a place where social media can be very dangerous because it is constantly telling you what you're doing is not enough. And so having kind of that
Mm.
foundational value system to go back to is a safe place to keep you from going off plan, going off budget, and making choices that aren't in kind of values alignment or what I call regretsy moments.
I love your terminology. But yeah, yes, yeah, we definitely remind me, please, when we finish to like definitely book that, because I tell people all the time, like people want you to go through these processes, but the steps, everybody just finds a way to like not share the steps of what that process looks like and just a general idea of what to expect. And it's not, it wasn't out there for me when I was looking for it. And I told you, I've always been a curious mind. So if I didn't find it, I'm like, yeah, um, something's up. Like, what is this secret all about? Like, why can't we just talk about what that is and make it better? And maybe the divorce rate won't be so high because, like you said, the conversations around finance leading up to the wedding will definitely help to create that alignment of, okay, these are our values. And so now as we are becoming one, we are one with each other's values, you
The
know.
number one driver of divorce is not infidelity, it is disagreements about money.
Right, exactly. Yep. That was, well, my divorce was a little bit different, but it was a
Number
mixture.
one,
But
not the only one.
right, but there was significant financial discrepancies because yes, I was a super saver, he was a super spender, and there was like the child care became an issue because I'm like, wait a minute, we both had this child together. Why is that not a, how is this a discrepancy? We both had this child. Like, this is not an expense that's just for me or just for you. It's for the child. And yeah, it kind of went downhill from there. But
Yeah,
um
but I mean that's a great example. Money is a reflection of your internal value system.
right, exactly. All right. So before we officially wrap up, I did
Yes.
want to ask, um what does the mindfulness have to do with managing the money? I mean, I know we kind of touched on it a little bit, but just as like a final recap, so that way for anybody who just kind of skirted past it, or maybe just catching it now, live on YouTube, um, what would you say is your response, as far as that's concerned,
Yeah.
or
So
perspective?
um mindfulness, and again, it's kind of like a very like a now topic. It's like a good buzzword, but
Hmm.
like the concept of mindfulness is being very present with your choices.
Hmm.
And the reason why it's so important with money is because so many of our money choices are not mindful. It's, I need this thing, especially with plastic, with credit cards, we just tap the card and we don't think about that choice in the context of like our bigger picture and our goals. And so a lot of us are kind of, setting goals at this one point in time and then living our lives by making individual transactional choices that don't tie back to this goal. So then at the end of the month, at the end of the year, we're disappointed with ourselves because we didn't achieve our goal. And so what mindfulness
Right.
does is it's making sure those goals are top of mind. So every time you make a decision, it is a
Mm-hmm.
conscious choice. It is not teaching you that all spending is bad and all saving is good. It is teaching you to make an opportunity cost choice every single time you spend on something. So it's like, hey, I live in California, so getting a latte with a tip is like $9. Every time I go out and get a latte, it is a mindful choice that I am making the decision to spend this $9, that I've built it into my plan, and that I'm okay with spending this $9 because it's in alignment with my values versus using that $9 for anything else. That is money mindfulness. So you're in control, you are making conscious choices, and those choices are adding up every single day, like, Legos, like Tetris, like your temperature gauge that we'll put on your website, finally adding up to
Right.
your goal.
Yes, yes. All right. I love that. I love that because the liberty of people, like of the dads and grads especially, a lot of what they have to go through is like they feel like it's out of their control. And so for them to have this level of mindfulness practice in place consistently, it at least it kind of tips the scale to give them that balance of control again, even though life may be tipping them off a little bit. And lastly, I wanted to ask, how much does your app cost? And well, yeah, let me start with that.
Yeah, yeah. So the question I always get is like, why isn't this app free like everybody else?
Mhm.
And the reality of apps is there's two different versions. There's the apps that charge money, and then there's the apps that are free. The apps that are free, there's nothing, no, talking, crap about anyone. But if you are offering a free app, you're a business, you have to get paid somehow. And a lot of that comes through advertising or referring your customers to other businesses. And something that I'm really concerned about is a lot of our members are coming out of dealing with some potentially predatory financial products. And so I almost think
Mhm.
about it, if you're in recovery, I really don't like the idea of my business being in a place where I'm potentially setting you up to be targeted for other financial products. And so I've made the choice to charge for my product because then I am fully values aligned with making sure I'm building something that you value enough to pay for. And so that's kind of just like my own kind of personal choice when I think about like how I want to build my business with integrity. How it works right now is everybody gets a 30-day free trial. And the reason why is because I understand it sounds counterintuitive that I want to help you save money, but I'm going to charge you money.
Right.
Um, but like my attitude about it is truly like, I want you to get value out of this. And if you're not getting value, you shouldn't pay for it. And I have a few different kind of like tiered options, but the base version, which is what I would recommend people use, especially if they're going through your program, because they don't need that higher level of personalized coaching because they're very much getting that through your program, is a $29 a month. And which sounds kind of high, but if you compare it to like, you know, BetterHelp or other sort of like more mindfulness, wellness journeys, it's much cheaper than those things. And what all of my members say at the end of their 30 days is, you've helped me save way more than $30. It's like, it's $30. It sounds
Right.
like a big subscription, but it's I want to know if you are not feeling like you're getting $30 out of the experience. And I'll also be
Right.
very honest, we're a startup, we're new, we're running a lot of experiments. And so what I always say to people is, if you are getting value out of the experience, but you are struggling with the price, like, I want to know, because my goal is to help. And so, again, early pricing is like this is me kind of getting into business school mode, but it's a very kind of fluffy thing. And so, what's
Mm-hmm.
more important to me is that you go through the experience and you're getting value out of it
Right.
And if the price isn't quite right for you, like, let's talk about it. Because what's more important is helping you change.
Mhm.
Like, I'm obviously trying to build a
Right.
business, but I'm also trying to change your life. So we can
Yeah. And
meet in the middle.
I was gonna say, and not only that, like as someone who is like just now beginning to learn the technology behind, like the back end work that goes into this front end experience for the end user. Yeah, 20, let me be honest with you, 29.99 for the month for every 30 days or whatever, like that is, it's a steal, and the reason why I say that, because I guess for one, I operate my life like a business. And so if people really kind of have that mindset, like people who are, some of them, the dads and grads, they might either have businesses or have had businesses in the past, and
Mm-hmm.
or possibly wanting to establish a business for the future. So that, I believe, is part of legacy building. So that's why I call my community of dads and grads, they're the legacy builders. And so
Love it.
part of building the legacy is, that self-care. So this is like, I tell them, especially when they purchase the workbook, because the workbook and the app are, roughly about the same amount. So
Mm-hmm.
the amount of money that I spent to have access to a person, it definitely, and like I give them free access every week on
Mm-hmm.
YouTube, right? So if they purchase the book, they still have the free access to me. But if they go through the program, it's going to cost it's going to cost significantly more, because that is time away from other opportunities that may yield some more income as a business owner from in my life. But also, if they are following my leadership or our leadership, right? If whatever we said today, whatever our stories were and our journey was, if they resonate with any part of our journey, and they actually uh, they admire the fact that we've come as far as we've come, then it's literally, it's a no-brainer. Because it's like, okay, if you want, someone told me, well, I think I read this, that insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. And so if they want to stay in the mindset of insanity because they're not willing to take the chance and just sacrifice, maybe, like you said, a couple of lattes, three lattes, right? Like that's the price of three
If you
lattes.
live
So
here, yeah. It's an investment in
well,
yourself too, which is something I thought you said that I thought was really, it's if you think about I mean, you can think about yourself as a business, but it's self-care. How much do you spend on self-care? How much do you spend on, out here at Soul Cycle? The program costs one Soul Cycle class, but even if, everyone is in a different place, so $30 might be a lot to you. But there's, one thing is, there, like you said, you're paying for something you value, but also my dream would be to go out of business. And I truly mean this, because if everyone has this skill set and I don't need to teach it anymore, that's amazing. And so I say this to say, like, my goal is not to be like the perpetual subscription that's on your credit card that you forget about. I actually, if I have members who like are there, I reach out to them and say, "Do you still want to pay for this?" Because
mhm,
I want you to graduate. I want you to go through this experience and then feel like you're in a place where you're ready to do this yourself. And then you don't need the experience anymore. Some people like it. I actually have a lot of what I call boomerangs, where people go through the experience, they think they're ready to go, and then they come back and they're like, I need this.
mhm,
And that's okay. And it's okay if that's what
mhm,
you want to choose. But it's really an investment in yourself, and specifically what you said earlier, in your future self. So if
mhm.
you love yourself and you want to take care of your future self, you pay that person first.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I feel like maybe those boomerang people, you might just need to, tell them that they need to follow Ruthie the Truth on her YouTube channel and just watch this episode at least, but also that there are other freebies out there to help them stay consistent, because consistency is so key. Like, even on your worst days, you can have life literally falling apart, but to know that you're not alone, like what you were saying earlier, in the process, it's like that makes all the difference in the world. Like, it's the little things in life, and just knowing, like,
That's why we
okay.
called it habit.
Yes, exactly. Yes, yes, yes. All right. So we got the name of habit. Quickly, where can the dads and grads find your website? I'm definitely going to create a link, so that way, even if they come on my website, they'll still be able to click on your information. But I just briefly
Absolutely.
want you to let them know where they can find you, how they can get in touch with you, etc., etc.
Absolutely. So you can find us at habitmoney.com. We're also on TikTok and Instagram at Join Habit Money, where I'm not nearly as organized as Ruthie here with all of your podcasts and a vision for the future, but I do a lot of like very kind of transparent talking like this about here's how I'm using this in my everyday life, and also sharing a lot of tips and tricks. Like, I've been posting a lot about the wedding stuff. I talk a lot about student loans and a lot about like how do you build a budget for the first time. So follow along. Again, habitmoney.com. You can get a free 30-day trial. You don't have to put your credit card down, so there's literally no risk to trying it out. So the only thing it takes is a minute a day, and a minute a day investment, and really $1 a day to feel better is
Mm.
a pretty good deal.
I would say, listen, I cannot wait. I am so thrilled to finally um, share this with the dads and grads. It has been quite a couple of months in the making, but now that we are here at about the halfway mark of the year, I really will. I love for them to see how the first half of their year, in comparison to the last half of their year, is going to have such a tremendous, like, difference. Like, they're going to literally, it will be undeniable within the first 30, 60, 90 days of them using this, that, you know there is a positive financial influence impact that can happen in their life, just by utilizing these simple, low cost tools. So I'm excited. I don't know about you, but
I'm so
I
excited.
cannot wait.
You said it best. It's simple. It's all simple stuff. It's hard to execute, and that's why you ask for a little bit of help. That's okay.
No, well, don't worry. You can leave the hard part to me. I got you on that. As long as you have the app, I'll let them listen. Every Wednesday, check in, you guys. Wheel of Life Wednesday check in. And that way they can have, that's the subjective. Jessica's app is the objective. And together we will come up with your assessment and your plan to get you to the 800 Club. And it'll have such an amazing impact on your life, financially and mentally, and all positive and all joy. And yeah, I just, I see it. I see it. I feel it. I feel it coming, it's in the air.
Yeah.
Thank you so much again, Jessica, for taking the time out to come on to the Dads and Grads podcast. For all of the dads and grads out there, if there was anything that you took away, like, what I want to know, what is your key takeaway from this episode specifically, whether it be from Jessica and her Habit app, or from myself and the Wheel of Life workbook, whatever it is, maybe it was something within either one of our stories. We want to hear from you. We want to know, what about this one key takeaway? What is one key takeaway that you got from this episode? See, now that I'm on my podcast, I can ask all the questions. So now I would like for you, the dads and grads, to support my question asking, the freedom that I have now to ask the question, so that way we know how we can best serve you, and we can pay it forward to you, for the rest of 2024 and beyond, because this is not just a one stop shop, one time thing. This is something that will continue to grow you, me, us, personally, professionally, and most importantly, emotionally. We want to spark joy at all times. All right, or as much as possible, at least. All right, guys. I will talk to you later. RuthieTheTruth.com. You can follow me there. You can head to my website, www.ruthietheetruth.com. All of my social media platforms are there, and definitely be on the lookout for mine and Jessica's picture. We're going to take a nice little selfie once we wrap up this live stream, and you just click on our picture and it'll lead you to Jessica's website, her link, where you'll be able to try it out for yourself, 30 days risk free. And you'll also have the access to join us for future lives. All right. So make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell. And for all of the listeners that can't see everything, you just go on your phone. Google Ruthie the Truth, and you'll find Jessica there. And yeah, don't worry, we got you guys. All right, so that is a wrap, and we will see you all next time. All right, bye guys. All right, one moment.